earlier we had this comment about the person only getting back €8 with Taxfix. And that's basically the next question about these tax software providers. We have a couple of different ones. We also made videos about them that allow you to file your taxes super easy in English from home. But sometimes we get the feedback that it's not so easy to do it all by yourself, because maybe you don't know what you don't know as a non-tax expert. So what I want to know is, what's your experience or your opinion as a professional tax advisor on these software providers?
To start with a joke, the problem always sits in front of the computer, right? But besides that, I mean, I cannot do a comparison of all these programs and tools, right? And of course, I try to lure someone to their tool with these, you get 1,070 on tax refund, right? And I do not tell you really that's just an average. And of course, it's, as we have discussed in other videos or before, it depends on the personal situation. So, from my personal point of view, right, these programs or tools only make sense in simple cases, right? And and if people just have the usual deductions, right? But it does not really help in cases where you have foreign income, complicated investments, and so on. Because I mean, what these programs do is they take basically what is usually, right? They ask all these questions, but they do not tell you, think about that and think about that. They do not explain you the rule, right? So, I mean, they are supportive, and there are cases that they might be helpful, and yes, they are cheap, right? Relatively cheap. But they are not, you cannot use them instead of a tax advisor. So if you really need advice, and then you should go a tax advisor. So, for example, what you could do is, so what I also basically advise my clients. So, if you're coming to Germany and it's the first year, let's do it by a tax advisor. Then, I mean, the first year is it's almost a complicated one. Second, you have the most deductions possible, and you see how it's working, and then you can think about, right? Does it make sense to switch to such a tool? Because then you have the first year as a blueprint, and then you can go from there, right? Or you are that happy with your tax advisor to say, okay, that's worth the money. I mean, of course, the first year also for the tax advisor is more complicated. He has to gather more information. It's probably then also more expensive than if you would do it in the following years, right? But it's a personal decision, right? People there can very well do with these tools, others do not. The biggest problem, what I see in using these tools, is that you might forget deductions, right? Then it's basically, okay, what do I forget? What is the cost for the tax advisor, right? I mean, that's a question you do not know.
Yeah.
Right?
And then they're not so cheap anymore, right? If you forget €1,000 in tax deductible costs, then they're not so cheap.
That is right. They do not tell you so what to do with foreign income, right? So with the allocation of the taxation rate is foreign income, right? So these programs do not really deal with double tax duties, right? So and therefore, basically, then you would need a tax advisor. So my recommendation would be, if you still have foreign sources, I would rather, at least for the first time, go to a tax advisor. So then, if you are working as a freelancer, right, and then there are bookkeeping requirements, right? You have to do a profit and loss statement, right? There are also online tools available, right? So they say you just scan it and we book it. That works in 90% of the cases. But I mean, I have a lot of clients using these programs. So what I basically do is, I said, do it. I have a look at it. And then I tell them, okay, that was a wrong booking. This is wrong, right? I mean, like, it's a professional insurance, right? So he thinks it's a liability insurance, but in fact, it's a pension insurance, right? Complete different tax treatment.
Yeah.
right? So, but that's what the program does not tell you, right? So then, but that's a way you can save basically your monthly cost, but you have then costs for a tax advisor to look at it, right? So that at the end of the day, it's correct what you have booked there and that your profit and loss statement is correct.
I think also for business owners, myself being one, I want to concentrate on the business, that it makes more money, and we have a tax advisor that takes care of all that stuff. And I think that's the same for employees as well. That's at least how I handled it back when I was an employee. I'd rather have an hour of spare time instead of handling my own taxes and have a professional tax advisor taking care of it.
That is right? I mean, and of course it depends on your business. If you have just 5 invoices, then that might be okay, right? So, but it's always personal judgment, right? And what, of course, where these programs do not help is if the tax office deviates from your position, so what you have filed. So that the taxes assessed by the tax office is different than the one the tool has calculated.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you are either at your own or you have to go to a tax advisor. For the tax advisor, then the difficulty is he has not filed the tax return, he does not know the case, he has to work into it. So what you probably have saved, you spend now in getting it right with the tax office.
So you have to work and you have to spend the money, okay?
So that might not necessarily, right? It might be that it's accepted, but there are deviations, right? There might be also deviations which are okay because you use the tool not the correct way or misunderstood some question of the tool and basically put in a wrong amount, right? So that might be, but you as a person with no experience in taxes might not know that, right?
Then you have it, what you said in the beginning, that the problem sitting in front of the screen.
Yeah, and then it's also important that if you use a tax advisor, the costs are deductible as long as they relate to your income. So the tax return basically consists of different parts. So the general tax return preparation is not deductible, but what relates to your employment income, what relates to self-employment income, what relates to rental income, that is deductible, right? So at least part of it will then again lower your taxes.
If people have further tax questions, Dirk, how can you help?
I mean, of course, you have to contact me, right? And then basically what I do is I conduct a Zoom meeting for a quarter of an hour to get to know the person, the requirements, and the topic and the expectations. And then tax advice has a lot to do with trust, right? So both parties, so you and I have to say, okay, we can work together, right? It does fit, right? And I have the trust in that person, right? And then based then on the information I get from the interview, then I can basically talk about the process, how it works, and of course also about the fees. What does it cost?